You're watching Past the Wire TV. Saratoga Saturday on Past the Wire TV. Presented by Amwager. Nobody does it better. You're watching Saratoga Saturday. Exclusive coverage every Saturday of the meet. Only on Past the Wire TV.
Well, does it get any better? You tell me.
I don't know. We might hear from a few people that think it's gotten worse over the years, but we'll get to that in a minute. John, another fantastic summer of racing hopefully is upon us as we get set here to talk about those first couple of big Saturday stakes at Saratoga.
Salute. A couple of days out from opening day. Well, now actually we're filming the day before opening day. Saratoga. We all look forward all year to Saratoga. If you're a horse player, a horse fan, an owner, a breeder, trainer, whatever, everybody looks forward to this meet, and it's here.
Yeah. Personally living 15 minutes from the track, been up in the Saratoga area for the last dozen years or so. Lots of great memories at Saratoga. I asked my wife to marry me on the roof. Probably, I don't know, maybe that was about 10 years ago now, maybe more. Plenty of our kids' birthday parties at the track over the summer. So outside of the racing, just a lot of, great family memories at the track itself, and, looking forward to an exciting summer, with everything else going on.
The important question that leads to is does it feel like 10 years ago, or does it feel like 30 years ago? That's the important question there. But
feels like yesterday, just in case she watches.
Yes, absolutely. No, I know you mean that. I have memories going back to Saratoga, and it'll tie into something that we're going to talk about to open the show before we preview some races, get Geo's thoughts, everything else. But since I was a little kid, we summered every summer in Saratoga because my dad was a mutual clerk, so it was just natural for us to migrate from Brooklyn, and it was kind of like a working vacation, to go up there every year since I was a little kid. I grew up literally running around that place, so the memories are very deep and at this point old, half a century of going up there more. So.
Yeah, I know everybody looks forward to, obviously the Whitney, the Travers. Personally, for me, my favorite race of the summer is always the Jim Dandy. It's an exciting race just because it's when you start to see a lot of those horses that, made it all the way through the Triple Crown season, or, perhaps fizzled out towards the lead up to the Derby, or, maybe kind of fizzled out between the Derby and the Preakness of the Belmont. They all start to come back to the track. And I know the last couple of years that race hasn't drawn the largest of fields. But, Forte was in it last year with Saudi Crown, and that was a pretty exciting race. It does compete with a grade $1 million race in the Haskell. A week later. So, a little bit of a lower stature race, but for me personally, it's one I always look forward to. You just get to see a lot of those exciting horses that you were kind of rooting for at the beginning of the year and into the spring. You see them return to the races, and, hopefully, you can tend to maybe find a little bit of a decent price around the early start of the Saratoga meet with those types of horses that may be disappointed in the spring and they've matured a little bit as they're halfway through their 3-year-old season now.
I agree, and no knock on the Haskell at all. It's $1 million race. It's a prestigious race. It's got its own history, and I don't intend to knock it at all. But when it comes to Saratoga and races like the Jim Dandy, and just knowing the history and the Jim Dandy bar, and just that, I mean, it's hard for me anyway to really put into words that mystique of Saratoga, that feeling that you get when you get to the town and when you walk into the racetrack, and I think you could just feel the history of the place, just emanating through everything there. And we're going to talk a little bit about the changes and it's how it's evolved. And there are many of them that I don't like, but one thing that I will say is that despite all the changes, despite everything that has evolved at Saratoga, some of which I don't like, even with all of that, you can't take away the presence and mystique and vibe of the town, no matter how it modernizes, no matter how it changes, no matter how it evolves, and of the racetrack. You know what I mean? You just can't, no matter how much they modernize it, they monetize it, they segregate areas, they do things that back in the day they never did. They've actually restricted the access to the horses, which is hard for some people to believe, but it's very different than it used to be. Where all those picnic tables are now used to just be trees with a number hanging from them. And that's where they walked the horses. That was essentially the paddock, and you could walk right up to the trees. I mean, I've walked up to Affirmed, Alydar, the Ruffian, I mean, Secretariat, and you could literally walk a foot away from them with no barrier as they walked around the trees. And I always wondered and always thought, even back then, with this kind of close access, and when they would walk the horses into the walking ring, they'd walk right through the crowd, and there'd be a Pinkerton saying, step aside, horse coming through, and you'd move aside, and you could be a foot from any one of these horses, and there was never an incident. Is remarkable. But I always wondered, I'm like, wow, how could there, never be an incident? And there had been horses that had reared up and acted up, but just fortunately, there was never any type of incident. But the access was unbelievable. And even taking that away and changing it and making it, I guess, safer, that presence of Saratoga still remains.
Yeah, it's like walking into Yankee Stadium. When they tore the old one down and built the new one in whatever it was, 2008, 2009, and even though it's across the street and it's not the same exact building, you still kind of feel some sort of magic when you walk in there. And it's always exciting. But, we have seen, I'm sure for you, going to the track far longer than I have, I've even seen it change in the last 5 years, going up almost every weekend, for the last decade or so. And it's, I don't know, perhaps I'm not the most, nostalgic or, overly sentimental person, but I have no problem with a lot of the new buildings that they're putting in, like the 1863 Club. I think it looks, classic and clean and fits the aesthetic of the whole place. That little treehouse paddock bar. I think it all looks good and cool and fun, and it kind of works. And, of course there'll be the naysayers that, don't like any bit of change. But, from an aesthetic standpoint, I'm fine with that. But I think, too, we've definitely seen a significant decrease in just the overall quality of the racing over the last handful of years. And, that's not unique to Saratoga or New York. I mean, that's pretty much the entire industry across the board as it is these days.
Yeah, I mentioned to somebody the other day, I got into a conversation about that very thing, and you're correct. That is pretty much an industry-wide thing. There have been very few venues that have been able to maintain that elite boutique status of racing. I would say Keeneland in the spring has done that because they've never extended that meet. I mean, I think what diluted the quality of Saratoga is just extending the meet and extending the meet and extending the meet. And I don't think they're done extending the meet. I think a couple of years from now we'll be up there by the 4th of July. And it's hard in today's environment to maintain that quality of racing over that period. You look at the Breeders' Cup, it's 2 days. They usually add a day or two to whatever venue they're going. And it's a very high quality, boutique type of meet. And I enjoy those. Royal Ascot has never changed. You know what I mean? It's, the couple of phenomenal days of racing. The Keeneland Spring Meet, again. So there are very few meets that have been able to maintain that elite status without either deciding or being forced for financial reasons to extend out. And I think with NYRA and Saratoga, it really comes down to economics. It's the meet they make money at, so naturally, that's what they focus on. It's like Churchill Downs basically running for 2 days a year. The whole operation runs around 2 days, Oaks and Derby Day.
Yeah.
NYRA really survives and runs because of Saratoga. It's not the Belmont Stakes, and it's not anything that happens, all year round. But I do think that, the type of races that they run in Card there now are so different than when I grew up, in the 70s, when it was, quote, the August place to be. You know what I mean? And I don't remember if they ran 5 or 6 days back then, but I think it was a 24-day meet. So 6, 12, 18, 24. So they probably had one dark day. I think it was Tuesdays, if memory serves. Tuesday was the dark day, and that's the day like everybody did laundry. But those 24 days, every day was an exciting day. Every day had a stake race. Every day had 2 or 3 maiden special weight races where you had a lot of homebreds from these farms that you couldn't buy into. I mean, they bred to race, and you could walk into. We're going to hear from Shug in a little while, but you could have walked into the Phipps barn, back then, and asked, to buy a hair of a horse for $10 million, and they'd have thrown you out. You know what I mean? Nowadays, they'd be like, yeah, let's go to the table and sit down. Well, not the Phipps, but most of these owners. So it's changed. The other thing is you had a lot of allowance races, non-winners of 1, non-winners of 2, non-winners of 3, where you had horses that were prepping for stakes or coming out of stakes and looking to get confidence builders or just, climbing the ladder. And those races would fill. Today, they don't. So they card these claimers and maiden claimers and, cheaper races, which is something we'll get into that, Chad referred to. And it's certainly, I don't think you can argue that it's, watered down the quality of the meet and the, type of racing that we see up there. Every day back then for those 24 days was a Derby-like card. I mean, not that many stakes, but prospects and horses prepping made up for that. So it was a phenomenal meet. And I do, I am in the camp that thinks it has been watered down.
Yeah. When's the last time you've seen a non-winners of 3 race card?
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, they don't fill. Now they've got to card them when they do as non-winner of 3 or optional claiming for 50 or something like that to get horses in there.
Yeah. So there's a race like that on Thursday that I was like, these horses are pretty good. Why are they running an optional claimer, and there you go. You answer the question.
That's it. Yeah, so it's challenging for racing secretaries. I mean, they know what horses are on the grounds. A lot of people don't know what goes on behind the scenes trying to get races to fill. And it's important for people to realize this. We bet on these races every day. There are many races where you're looking at the past performances and a horse is in there, and you don't know that the horse is in there because the racing secretary called up the trainer and said, listen, I need another horse to make this race go. You've got a horse that's eligible. Please enter him. Well, he's not quite ready. I was pointing for this race. Yeah, but we really need him. Do us a favor, and then we'll write that other race that you've been asking us to write for this other horse. Just put him in there. And they throw him in there, and there you are betting on him. And at first thought, you're like, oh, wow, that's, terribly not fair to the bettor. But at the end of the day, it evens out. You want to know why? Plenty of those horses win. Sometimes trainers put in a second horse to make the race go for the horse they really want to run. And guess what happens? The one they put in to make the race go winds up winning and beating the other one. So horses humble everybody. It's horse racing. That kind of stuff happens, but it's part of the game. And a lot of people don't realize that a racing secretary's job is pretty tough. They've got to hustle horses into those races to make them go. And they've got to write a book, and conditions that are based on the horses they know are on the grounds.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't share this soundbite from Shug McGaughey that I got earlier in the week, but you hit on a lot of the changes that he's seen over the years, and you even mentioned one of the things that he thought would be wishful thinking on his part to see get changed in the future. So let's check in with Shug. I caught up with him earlier this week alongside the Oklahoma training track one morning recently.
Sounds good. Always great to hear from Shug.
Well, as you say, I've been coming up here a long time now, been in this barn since 1985, the summer. There's a lot of great memories here, the Travers, I think we've won 4, and Alabama, probably that many. One of the great, races was the Coronado's Quest Travers, was very exciting, and obviously the Easy Gore one, and persistently beating Rachel Alexander here in the personal instant was a lot of fun. I think we could probably caught Rachel on the downside, but we won. And so it's fun coming up here. It's it's a bit different now with the people, and the Phippses used to be every day here, and it's not quite the same now. And so but I enjoy it. I think that it's and this is just me being selfish, it's got to be where it's pretty long meet. I really liked it when it was 4 weeks and they got everything taken care of in the 4 weeks, but I think financially it makes a lot of sense to be up here. The old traditional families are really kind of gone, and a lot of it's limited partnerships and people more trying to have fun with and to breed and race really good horses as the Phippses did, and Green Tree and Calumet, King Ranch, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's changed a lot. I think that obviously there's a lot of controversy now with field sizes, and so I think that with the condensing of the fields, that it's taken away a little bit, but it's still a great place to be. I mean, the weather's great. We have fun up here. Not doing much anymore, being old, but it's still a great place to come for the summer. I mean, if I could change a few things, there is a few things that changed. The first one is, maybe condense the meet a little bit, but as we saw here with the Belmont at Saratoga, it was quite a fun 4 days, and so I wouldn't be surprised that somewhere along the line that's incorporated here, and I don't think they'll run the Belmont here, once they get Belmont built. And but I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see maybe some long weekends, and to where the fan support was just terrific here for those 4 days, and it would probably be something that they're going to look into in the future.
Come on, man. I didn't watch that clip before you put it up. Okay. I knew that we had it. I didn't watch it. Come on, man. Old school. I've always loved Shug. I love me more now. Old school. Great minds think alike. I mean, I can't train a racehorse, but other than that, he and I are on the same page, man. Forget about it. That was for me. That was great. That was great. Ditto. What else could I say? No, he should have said ditto to me. I said it
first. You said it first.
He should have said that. I agree with everything he said, and he even kind of alluded to that July 4th opening up too, which I do believe is going to happen. If I could get a line on Vegas that Saratoga opens on July 4th weekend by, what is this, 2024, by 2028, I'm all in. I bet. What's the line? Yeah. I'd bet.
Yeah.
I'll take the under. I'll take the under.
I mean, it'd probably do more handle on that Stars and Stripes weekend.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, let me tell you, he alluded to something like the Phipps would air every day, and it's true. And the one thing that about Saratoga, and this is still true to this day with a lot of the riders, but back then when I was going, you had guys like Angel Cordero ruling the place, George Velasquez, Jacinto Vasquez. Those guys were so accessible, and not only them, all the trainers were around, all the big owners were around. I remember when I was a kid going to the racetrack up at Saratoga, Fred Astaire, okay, was always walking around in the paddock with, I don't think he was married to Robin Smith, the jockey, yet, but he was certainly courting her. That was obvious. And just all kinds of people like that were just around and part of the scene. And, there weren't nearly as many restaurants. So when you went out to dinner, okay, you saw a lot of these same people, and it was a very friendly, kind of familiarity that just developed from seeing the same faces at the races than at dinner. So you were, saying hello to the same people every year at the races, at dinner, that you might not know them, but there was that familiarity, you know what I mean? And it was a very friendly brotherhood type of thing in racing, which I think has kind of evaporated a little bit. You know what I mean? It's become more cliquish, less friendly, more animosity, more, if you're with him, you're not with me. And, just it's a little different. And there was a restaurant on the lake called Mangino's. I believe it's still there. Not popular at all. Okay. In the 70s, okay, there were two restaurants. Well, three. The Wishing Well, which is still there and very popular. The Trade Winds, which is gone. It's now the Hilton Garden Inn in town. And Mangino's on the lake, which is now an afterthought, okay? Nobody goes there. In the 70s and 80s, if you wanted to go to any one of those restaurants for dinner, any one of the 24 days of the meet, if you didn't want to wait 4 hours, literally, for a table, you had to leave after the 8th race. There were 9 races back then. The 8th race was always the stake. You had to leave after the 8th race and get there early, and you still probably had to wait a little bit. You know what I mean? But that's the kind of town it was. You know what I mean? You would pull up, and you could just tell by the parking lot about how long the wait was going to be. And they were great restaurants back then. Mangino's was great. The Trade Winds was great. The Wishing Well is still excellent. And they somehow maintained their popularity, but now there's a million places up there. I have like 15 Church and Nove myself, but there's a million places up there. Back then there weren't quite that many.
Yeah. I remember going up as a kid and just having to, even just parking to go to the track, hopping out of the car, like basically just off the Northway on the side of the road there. by that first traffic light that you hit, having to walk, half a mile up the road to get to the gate.
Right.
You don't have to worry about that now. Parking
Now,
is a lot easier nowadays with, there's not
at night,
people going.
okay, at night, and I'll share a funny story. At night, and it's really a one-liner, but at night, the place to go was where I want to say the Cateros apartments or condos are right now.
Mm-hmm.
There was a nightclub, a disco, the Rafters. Okay, that was a popular place. Everybody went to the Rafters after, at night, and you would go to the Rafters. You would see a lot of the riders there. They'd be out drinking, partying, laughing, dancing, hanging out, and fans loved that. Everybody loved that, because you would go out and you would see, who were, quote, the stars of the game, and have a drink with them, bullshit with them, talk with them outside of the racing environment.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget one day, my friend Joey DeMeo, who's still my dear friend to this day, we're up at Saratoga and we were staying with a rider who was riding up there that we were very, very friendly with. And a rider came in to ride a stake race from California. And he got in the night before, and we were with this other rider, and I'm not going to mention their names because it's just not the right thing to do. But he walks in, we get introduced to the guy. I knew him literally 30 seconds. The first thing out of his mouth was, "Where can I get some Coke?" It was the 70s. What could I tell you? Maybe it might have been the 80s. I don't know. But that's just how it was back then. It was just a different world. And I literally knew the guy 30 seconds, and that's what he asked me. And he had a big stake the next day. Which
did he win?
I don't remember. I wish I could remember the horse, and I'm usually good with stuff like that, but I remember the rider, but I don't remember. I don't remember who he came to ride.
Let's touch on quick what Chad had to say to Horse Racing Nation earlier in the week before we dive into the trio of stakes races on Saturday. I think he's both right and wrong, and for anybody that isn't familiar with what he said, it's basically saying that he's operating at the top end of New York racing. His barn is full of promising 2-year-olds and graded stakes runners and graded stakes winners, as we all know. And it's tough for him to find spots for his horses to run because they're carting a lot of these, lower quality, cheaper races. And, I think on the surface, certainly very true. He's training these horses. He's got to look out for his owner's best interest for their horses, and trying to find spots for all of these horses to run is getting difficult. I don't think there's any denying that. But at the same time, he's the guy with all the horses.
Right. And that's a whole nother issue. But I actually agree with him across the board. It ties into what we said earlier. I think that instead of focusing on extending the meet and for lack of a better term, what I would consider milking the meat for all it's worth and turning it into just a profit center, okay? Which is basically what, to me, it appears they have tried to do with all the different areas you have to pay. If you got a seat over here, you can't walk into over there, kind of like, it's not like that, in the whole day. You could go anywhere. It was just a different kind of scene. But I think that instead of that, what they should be focusing on is the exclusivity of the meet and attracting those kind of horses and those kind of stables and running that kind of meet for a shorter period, where they cater to that. You know what I mean? And well, how do you do that? The first thing that I would do is I would try and attract international horses, more horses from Japan, more horses from England and Ireland and France, more turf racing, which is tough because of the weather. So, maybe you got to go outside of the box and go Hong Kong, Japan, and incentivize a lot of the maiden special weight horses and maiden special weight, prospects, and tie into, stake races. You break your maiden at Saratoga, you get a berth into the Breeders' Cup, juvenile. You know what I mean? Things like that. You win a non-winner of 1 or a non-winner of 2 at Saratoga, you get into this race, so you get this bonus, and incentivize those races and get those barns to come. Now, granted, you're still going to have the problem of the, quote, I don't know who termed it or coined it, the super trainer that's got a lot of horses, but that's a tough situation, limiting horses and trying to tell people who they've got to use kind of goes against free enterprise and being able to use who you want to use, and rewarding people for their success. I mean, I've got 3 or 4 people I would want to let train for me, and that's it. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't want anybody to tell me that I can't use them, and I certainly wouldn't want them to tell me, John, I would love to take your horses if I had any. I don't. Well, unless you count the one in the garage. But if I had any horses, I wouldn't want a trainer to tell me, I'd love to take your horse, but I can't because I'm only allowed to have 15, and I got 15 and 10 people on my waiting list. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's a whole nother area of the industry that has to somehow be resolved. And I don't have the answer for that. I haven't given it enough thought because I don't have any horses, so it really doesn't affect me, and I don't plan on buying any. So I don't know what the answer to that really is.
Yeah, I mean, me neither. It is something that I think they should look at.
I agree. I mean, that they almost have to, but again, if you put yourself in the owner's position, okay. Right. All right. I mean, you're an owner now. You're a little involved. Let's say you were owning on a different level. Let's say you went to the sale, you bought a 2-year-old, you thought it was a great grass horse, it had a ton of potential. Chad Brown comes over to you at the sale and says, I was looking at that horse too. I really think that horse is great. I love the way he looks here. I love the way he looks there. My agent liked him. We were going to go in for him. Blah, blah, blah. Congratulations. Best of luck. Who's going to train him? Chad, I'd love you to train him. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't. I've got my 12. I can't take him.
Right.
Where does that put you?
Right.
So it's tough. It's like, not to go off course, but real quick, the CAWs. Everybody wants them out. I'd love to see them out too. But how do we replace that handle? If they go, how do we sustain ourselves? Do the math.
Yeah.
If we make up as much of the handle as we believe they do, and they do, subtract 30, 40%, 45%, 30% of the daily handle, we're struggling now. Take that away. How do we replace that? Nobody gets to that. They're like, oh, get rid of them and get rid of the rebates. Okay, great. What happens the day after they're gone?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Your pick 5 pool that you're excited to play because there's $1 million in it.
Right.
Somehow it ends up being a $250,000 pool.
Right, exactly. Now you're like saying, oh, gee, where's the money? Well, and so everything ties into something else. You know what I mean? So, the super trainers are a problem, but I look at it from all angles. And if I was an owner, I don't want anybody to tell me who could train my horse but me.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of layers to it. There's a lot of layers to extending the meet. There's a lot of layers to shortening the meet. The Saratoga Chamber of Commerce and all of the businesses on Broadway would have a lot to say, extending or shortening the meet. I think a lot of the smaller trainers with, smaller stables right now, they would love the opportunity to train a graded stakes caliber horse. And perhaps they could get there at some point. But, I think from talking to a lot of trainers, talking to a lot of people in the industry, just the costs to maintain a stable, whether you're winning or not, is very difficult with, just all of the extra fees and whatever else that kind of get applied. So, I think there's a lot more layers than just NYRA or some other entity saying, okay, trainers are only allowed to have a maximum of whatever it is, 35 or 50 horses at one time. I think there's a lot of other avenues and a lot of other layers to that overall discussion that probably need to be ironed out. But, I think it all just kind of ties back to just kind of all of the changes that we've seen, not only at Saratoga, but racing as a whole, over the last, 10, 20 years.
I agree. It's, one of the reasons, and there's several, but one of the reasons that we make so little progress in the industry, and we do make some, and we've made some good strides, but one of the reasons that we don't make as much as a lot of people would like is the issues are complicated and intertwined.
Right.
And one decision affects something else. So
yeah. All right, let's take a quick timeout, and then we'll come back.
Got some exciting racing to talk about.
We'll go through the 3 stakes races for Saturday. Stick around. All right.
Thank you, Amwager, for helping us bring these shows to everybody. We appreciate it. And check out amwager.com for their latest promos for Saratoga and more. And I think the Saturday card is phenomenal.
Yeah, a lot of good races, top to bottom. The first race that we'll talk about is the Kelso. I thought, just from a field size standpoint, you're going to have 5 runners, and then I don't anticipate this coming off the grass, but one MTO here, just from a number of horses in the race, it's a little light, but I think a couple of these coming out of that, what was it? The poker on Belmont Day, which was an exciting race. So a lot of intrigue with a small field here.
I agree with that, and I also think it's the kind of race that it's a small field, but you can make a case for a lot of the horses that are in it. And that being said, a lot of people shy away from these small fields because the consensus now, or the style now, or the mindset of most bettors now, Jim, is they want to use these cowboy tickets and spread all over the place.
Yeah.
And in these small fields, if you do that, you put yourself up against the 8 ball. In the long run, you're going to get annihilated, So what these small fields make you do, and for someone like me, I embrace it. I always say, what do I say? Cash less, win more. I'm okay with taking a single, knowing that in a 5-horse field, there's 3 other horses I know can beat me, but this is the one I like. This is the one I think gets the trip. This is the one I'm going to back. And I'm okay with being right or being wrong this time, because in the long run, betting that way will win me more money than spreading out and insisting on betting a pick 4 or a pick 5 or a pick 6 and using 3 or 4 out of the 5 horses.
Yeah, and I think too in this race, most people are going to gravitate towards either Mysterious Night, Talk of the Nation, or Carl Spackler, which all three of them are coming out of that poker. I'm looking elsewhere, but are any of those three ones that you were interested in betting?
Well, I think you can make a case for all three of them. Okay. I think Carl Spackler at post time will wind up being the favorite. But I've watched his last race a couple of times, and I really don't have an excuse for it.
I thought the same thing. I watched that. It was going back and forth from the top of the stretch to like the eighth pole, trying to figure out why he just stopped running. And I couldn't figure out why he just stopped running.
Yeah, I just I couldn't find an excuse for it, and I thought he'd win that race. He didn't, and I have no excuse for him. So I don't think I want to back him as the favorite. He does like Saratoga, but again, that last race was at Saratoga. I also thought, as good as his race off the layoff was, it wasn't as impressive as I thought maybe it could have or should have been coming off the bench, if he had really gone forward. So, he could certainly win. I'm not betting on Carl Spackler on Saturday. Mysterious Night, I think, is very intriguing. Probably, in my opinion, coming back at Saratoga, getting Pratt, having that inside draw. What is he in the 2-hole? I think he's going to be a handful and very tough. And I think he's going to get a really, really good trip. And, I go back to the race he won at Woodbine. And ever since I saw that race, I thought this horse had another really big race or two in him. And he's won some after that. But I don't think he's ever ran quite that good again. And I think he might on Saturday. Probably my top choice, but there's two horses, like you said, that are outside of those three, that I think can run big races. And Northern Invader is one.
Yeah.
I think that horse has shown flashes of talent on more than one occasion. And who's been hotter than Sherry DeVoe of late, even in these big stake races. So that horse can definitely, in my opinion, run a big race. And Talk of the Nation is intriguing to me, and I don't knock Shug at all. I think he's one of the best, but this horse has only been with Todd for 2 races, and I think he's improved, and I think he can continue to improve. And that's a little I think worrisome if you're betting against him. So he's one I think can definitely make some noise as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. Northern Invader is going to be my top pick in here. I think shortening back up to a mile is going to be really good for this horse. We're supposed to get a ton of rain Wednesday night into Thursday. And it'll be hot and dry from there, but I still think we're supposed to get like maybe 2 inches of rain. So the turf might still be a little bit soft come Saturday.
Okay.
And I think a little bit of give in the ground is going to benefit Northern Invader as well. And like you said too, Sherry DeVoe's been as good as anybody. And I think this horse is sitting on a good effort, and especially too because Carl Spackler is going to take money, and Mysterious Night's going to take money. And like you, John, I watched that poker back a dozen times, and I mean, kudos to Jose Ortiz and Ice Shock a lot for being aggressive and getting out on the front when, it seemed like closers on the dirt and turf during Belmont weekend up here were having trouble making up ground. And, he took advantage of that and ran off at 24-1 or whatever it was. But it just seemed like, Carl Spackler, Mysterious Knight, these are quality horses, and I feel like they should have been able to have a little bit stronger of a run down the stretch, and they just didn't. So figuring that those two are probably going to take a bulk of the money, I'm going to look elsewhere and play Northern Invader as my top pick. And then I think you made a really excellent point too about Talk of the Nation. Third start for Pletcher seems to be getting his feet under him, and he should be running a pretty good race too, as likely the third choice, I would have to think.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe even fourth. Who knows how they're going to bet this race? We don't have the morning lines yet, so that will affect the betting. I'm sure it's not going to affect my opinion much, but it'll certainly affect the betting.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to add about the Kelso?
No, just reiterate. Don't when you got a short field,
make
a decision and back it.
Yeah. All right. The Diana was pretty loaded. Going back to kind of what we were talking about with Chad earlier, he's got 5 in here in a full field of 10, and I think a lot of big names in here. Coppice is probably ran the best race on whatever it was, Derby Day or Oaks Day, where she finished second to Chili Flag. Chili Flag's in an outside post, so we'll see her name in a second. White Beam won this race last year. Didia seems to be a fan favorite. Moira's coming back after the Breeders' Cup. This Nisi Marie has been good as of late. So a lot of interesting things happening in this race, at least the way I looked at it. Who stuck out to you here?
I think this is a great race. I really do. There are 3 horses I think are the most likely winners. Okay, that's Coppice, Moira, and Chili Flag. And I'm going to wind up probably betting Coppice.
That's interesting. I feel like that horse has kind of been disappointing.
It's been extremely disappointing. I thought the horse would win the first start here. Didn't, but ran very, very well. I thought she would definitely win the second race and take a big step forward, and she didn't. She did bump the gate coming out of the gate, and that put her much further back than I thought she was going to be. Watched the replay a couple of times. She never really made a big move, but it looked like she was in traffic. She was in an uncomfortable spot. She was behind horses. She was between horses. For the second or two that she had a chance to really go, she really didn't kick in. But when they were approaching the wire and Chili Flag kind of blew up past everybody, she did kind of get another spark of life in her. And when I watch it again and then again, she looks to me like she's really going to like the additional ground. I think
so.
Yeah, I think she really is. And I think a lot of people are going to think she's not, and kind of take the position.
I'm in that boat.
Yeah, no, and I get that, and I'm hoping that helps her price, and a lot of people kind of give up on her, and she's like the forgotten horse, because I do think that her best race is better than anybody else in here's best race that we've seen thus far. Moira, I find very intriguing. I think if she's ready for her top effort off the bench, which is a bit of a question mark, but if she is, I think she can be very competitive here. I think she's a really nice filly. I think she's never really lived up to the potential that a lot of people thought that she's had, but she's still in the game, and this might be her year to really step up. And Chili Flag is just developed into a rock solid, serious, I'm going to bring my game, and you're going to have to hold me off kind of racehorse for Chad. I mean, she's really gotten good. So I do believe she's going to run her race and be coming. I think you can make a case for maybe 6 or 7 of the other horses, but I think the winner is going to be one of those 3. And I think Coppice is going to show us what she didn't show us in those first 2 starts. And I know Chad's doing it on Carl Spackler, and I don't really like Carl Spackler in that race. But I do like Coppice, and I love when Chad doesn't back off when you don't see an excuse, and he's not doing that with Carl Spackler. So, we might all be eating crow that bet against him on Saturday after the Kelso, and I think that, Coppice, him not backing off and running in a race that he's literally dominated. What does he win? 6 of the last 7 or
Something
7
like
of the last 8, whatever it is. The fact that he's not backing off with her and putting her right in here off that last trip that a lot of people are going to see different than I see it. I'm going to land on her and give her another shot, and I think she's going to get it done.
Yeah, I landed on Moira as my top choice, just mostly because she's been the best in this field, I think, going that longer distance. So I think, if she's back at in decent form, coming off of this long layoff, I think she's going to be a major factor in here. And just looking at Kevin Attard's stats here, 21% on the 90 days or longer layoff. Now, granted, this has been half a year. So I guess you kind of have to roll the dice, but 21% from nearly 200 starters, 90 plus days away. Seems like she's been training rather consistently since the end of April up at Woodbine, which was home base last year, where she ran, quite well. And I think she's got a big shot in here. The only kind of downside, in addition to that layoff, is that she's not trained by Chad Brown, and he's had a ton of success in here. Didia is interesting too, seemingly a fan favorite of late, and
I think she'll probably be favorite or second choice to Chili Flag, right?
For sure. And a lot of my pause with these Chad runners is they've all, at least lately, been doing their best running at a mile. And, I don't know the condition book inside and out. So, perhaps there just hasn't been that many 1 1/8 options for them. But I'm going to, look elsewhere away from them and land on Moira and this Nisi Marie. I like using the Brisnets and her late pace figures in the last 2 in the New York. She got a 102 late pace figure and a 105 in the Bogey at Aqueduct 2 back when she won. And those are the 2 biggest in the field. So that's where I landed. I think that extra 1/8 of a mile is going to be a challenge for a handful of these. And I'm going to go with the two, at least in my view, that have proven to be quality at that longer distance. And that's Moira and Nisi Marie for me.
Big race, Jim. I agree with Moira. I think she's dangerous, but I did land somewhere else. The toughest of the three, I think, might be the last one we're going to talk about.
Yeah, the Sanford was interesting, and like I was kind of mentioning earlier with the Jim Dandy, you kind of get these horses that are maturing more halfway through their 3-year-old season, and we see that on full display with the 2-year-olds. So some good names in here. I wasn't super impressed with this Mentee first time out for Pletcher last time.
One more jump, he gets beat.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I guess it depends on how you want to look at it. It feels like Johnny V kind of wrapped him up a little bit early and, maybe got bailed out by the wire, but, I wasn't super impressed. This 3 Echoes I liked last time off his maiden win. Just didn't get it done. But the other on here, like this Moplex, I think has been getting a decent amount of chatter. So, certainly a couple of interesting choices in here, as well as just kind of the unknown, right? These horses are making their second or third starts, and a lot can happen from one start to the next with these 2-year-olds.
I agree. Challenging races to bet, and I actually came up with a horse that I don't think a lot of people are going to come up with. But I was actually looking at Mr. Squeaky Wheels, who's never even been on the dirt. He's got that one race at Presque Isle. But I've been watching every member of the Rice family going back to Clyde Rice. When these Rices ship to Saratoga, they're deadly. Adam Rice, we know. Kevin Rice. They bring horses ready to run. And when I look at this race, I see a lot of horses with 1 or 2 starts. A lot of them went to the lead. When I watched the replays of most of them, I didn't have any jump out at me, and sometimes they do. Like Jose Ortiz won a 2-year-old stake the other day with that horse that came from last after going wire to wire, and it didn't surprise me at all, because when I watched him run wire to wire, I thought, this looks like a horse to me that shuts down and can relax and rate, and I think he might, and he did. Mr. Squeaky Wheels looks that way to me, and I think he's almost going to have to come from off the pace with all the speed that you have in here. So, first time on dirt, I don't think he's going to be able to go and keep up with all of these horses. So I think he's going to sit off the pace, and, I think he might be running late and surprise everybody at a big, big number. So when I think that's a possibility, my philosophy is, why not take a shot? You only got to be right 1 out of 10 times when they're like that,
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, the horse figures to be a rather large price coming out of Presque Isle and a 4.5 furlong sprint on the synthetic. Obviously, like you said already, we're recording this before the morning line odds.
Morning line's going to be 20 to 1, right?
Yeah, at least, right?
Yeah.
Though, I think Jose going to Kentucky is going to pay off huge for him this summer. It seemed like he had a couple of down summers after winning he won the riding title up here, before 2020. I was like, what, 2018 or 19?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's been a little light up here for him since then, but I think moving to Kentucky and riding at Churchill is gonna pay off really well for him this summer. So I'm expecting him to be near the top of the rider standings, and you know, perhaps he gets his a good graded stakes victory here with Mr. Squeaky Wheels. I don't see it personally. Like I mentioned when we had the graphics up, I like this 3 Echoes. But my top choice is going to be this War Tax. You know, I think you can just completely forget that Bashford Manor. Just not a really good trip at all. So if you draw a line through that and you go back to his maiden race, which I thought was really nice, I think with that little bit of seasoning, you know, and kind of getting bounced around in that last race, I think, you know, hopefully that works to his advantage with a little bit more seasoning and a little bit more experience with a little bit of a crowd like we've got here with, what do we got, 10, 11 runners. So I landed on War Tax, going to take a shot with him and just going off of that maiden race that I thought was, you know, pretty promising.
Well, what are your thoughts on this Moplex that's getting all the hype? Well, him and Menti, I guess, are getting the hype, but
yeah, I mean, he's fine, right? I mean, he's, you know, that maiden win was pretty impressive. He won by 10 lengths. I don't know. I just kind of guess he figures to take a lot of money, and I don't know. I think in these races you can't just settle on the low price, because there's going to be a lot of horses that have matured from you know, the last month or two from when they've run and should pop up and you know, be contenders. So in these races, I tend to look away from the likely favorite or second choice.
Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And I certainly did that in this race because I went the extreme spectrum, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, Geo is going to be with us on a lot of these shows coming up. He's heading up to Saratoga for opening day. So he's not live with us, but we are going to check in with our man Geo Sette and his deep dive on the 3 stake races. Let's see if he agrees with us, differs from us, and where Geo lands.
Hey guys, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And listen, you know I'm delighted to be here, Past the Wire TV, Saratoga Saturdays, and I'll be with Saratoga Saturdays all meet long. I look forward to sharing so much of what I do with my passion for handicapping. All right, so Saturday, 3 big races. The second race is the Grade 3 Kelso. The 10th race is the Grade 1 Diana, the big one. And the 11th race is the Grade 3 Sanford. All right? So let's talk about these 3 races. I have a pretty strong opinion in a couple of them. I actually like all 3 races, but I really like a couple of my, you'll see that based on what I'm sharing with you. Okay, race 2, Saturday, 1 mile on the turf, the Kelso Grade 3 Stakes. Nice field, albeit a short field, but very competitive and a well-matched field. I'll tell you what I land on, and I'll give you some reason. I land on the 5, Carl Spackler. You know, it's a tough guy. 3rd race in 24. Gaffleone is up for Chad Brown. Proven at Saratoga on the lawn. Loves the distance. Training well. Should be a handful in this race. I couldn't get past Carl Spackler on top. However, I'm going to use 2 horses in this race in my multiples and Key, Carl Spackler in my exactor and my triple. My second choice is Mysterious Night, Godolphin Blue, Charlie Appleby. Travels well, is training well. European, back to the States, back to Europe, back to the States. I kind of like that. The horse is in good shape. And I consider the 2 with Pratt up for Charlie Appleby a contender in the race. So that's 5-2. And the third horse I'm giving consideration to for my my under gimmicks, Cold Triple. There will be no super in this race. It's Talk of the Nation with Irad up for Todd Pletcher. That's the 4. So in the Kelso, 5-2-4 is my handicap. All right, let's go to the big one. Race 10, the Grade 1 Diana. A little history on this. A couple of years ago, nice score with In Italian. I remember my big scores. And Chad Brown has just owned this race, winning this Diana 7 out of the last 8 years. That's Chad Brown. And they've been running this Diana since 1939. That's the history of it. All right. In this race, a lot of quality fillies and mares, but I went with the 4, Didia. Very impressed. Could be the best mare in training. Grade 1 winner. Unrelenting, proven on the Saratoga lawn, perfect at the distance, an 11-time winner and a Grade 1 winner. I couldn't get past Didia in a very competitive field. Second choice is Gina Romantica. Chad Brown, also a Grade 1 winner, also has a big win on a Saratoga lawn, proven at the distance. Franco's up for Chad Brown. My third choice is Capice. That's the 2. Frankie Dettori up for Chad Brown. A 4-year-old filly facing older mares. Needs a good trip, but if she gets a good trip, she could come running hard in the stretch and be a contender here. 4th in my handicap was Nisi Marie. Louise Sayas is up for Robert Reed. 3rd and 24. I think she's sitting on a big race too. So I couldn't rule her out entirely, but I like her more underneath. The other 2 that I'm going to consider in my triple or my superfecta boxes is the 7 Fluffy Socks and the 10 Chili Flag, who's been red hot. So my Grade 1 Diana, 4, 5, 2, 8, 7, 10. Let's go to the Race 11, the Sanford, the Grade 3 Sanford. I got something interesting to share with you guys today. First of all, 2 years ago, I had a very, very generous, profitable score. I scored at most strike in 2022. Nice score, came charging down the lane, paid $20 that day. Good score for Mr. Sette. So I have a history in this race. In this race, an 8-horse field of young colts, all 2-year-old, I land on 7 War Tax. Now, let me tell you something to do in this race, especially if you new handicappers who don't watch many races. You got an 8-horse field, and you have 12 races to review. Go ahead and review all the races, okay? Especially the 2 run by War Tax. Here's why I land on War Tax. First of all, Carlos Martin is one of those crafty veteran trainers. Don't underestimate him. A switch to Castellano. This son of Outwork won his debut at Aqueduct. And then that last race at Churchill, you need to watch this. He broke from the 9-hole, was punched around at the break, had to come out of that. Then he made a 5-wide blitz. Watch the race. Watch how fast and how willing the horse was and how many horses he was passing 5 wide. He makes the turn coming from home. You think he's going to have a big stretch run, and then he gets punched around in the stretch. That horse showed some maturity. Rough trip, been through a lot, switched to Castellano, is going to be overlooked in this field. I think there's going to be some pace. I think this horse is going to be tactical with a better break. Dangerous. War Tax, my top choice, the 7. Second, the 1, Menti, who's going to be well bet and well regarded. Remember, I have the form here, no morning lines, nothing like that. So I'm assuming price here, and I think War Tax is going to be underappreciated. It's going to be an overlay in my book. Okay, I may get a good number on War Tax. Anyway, my second choice is Mentee, the 1, Todd Pletcher. You got Johnny V up, World of Talent, solid debut, ran a big number. I think the horse will go forward from there. Dangerous, the 1, but it's going to be my second choice, and I'm using the 1 in my multiples. My third choice is the 3, Baby Dukes. Jose Lascano up for Robert Reed, also very impressive in his debut. My fourth choice / fifth choice together is Studley Do Right, the 6 and the 8, respectfully, Moplex with IRAD for Jeremiah Engelhardt. It's a New York bred, going into open company, but very impressive in his debut as well. So in the grade 3 Sanford, Mr. Sette is going with War Tax, the 7, the 1 Mentee, the 3 Baby Dukes. Then the 6 and the 8, Studley Do Right and Moplex will round out my triple and my Superfecta keys. And watch the board, and please go watch that race on War Tax. Mr. Sette was very impressed. I think the horse has talent, and I think he's going to be dismissed somewhat at the window. The 1 is definitely, in my opinion, a horse to beat based on the race he ran, draws the rail, but is beatable. And I'm using both of them in my multiples. Okay, you guys have a great day. And I'll see you around on Saratoga Saturdays here on Past the Wire TV. God bless you. God bless your families. Back to the other guys.
All right.
That was fast for Geo.
Yeah. You needed the water trying to cram all those words into 8 minutes.
That was fast for Geo. Yeah. I was immersed in my phone, and it was back to us before you knew it.
We love Geo. Good handicap. I like that. I like that he likes War Tax too. So
I was thinking that. I was listening. And I kept hearing War Tax as his horse, and I knew that was the one you liked. So nobody deep dives like Geo. Nobody.
Oh, and he's got his whole opening day grid on pastthewire.com right now, and on his Twitter feed as well. So if you catch this before opening day, feel free to check that out.
Yes, and he is he's building up his followers. He really has not been very active on Twitter, but now, or X, whatever it is now, but now he is, and he's at Sette Better Days.
All right. I think we'll wrap it up there. As always, tons more info on pastthewire.com. John, you're going to be giving out a lot of additional insights on the tracking trips page. So if you're not a member there, now's the time to sign up with an extra set of eyes on the best summer racing around.
Our Whitney Day last year was good for the whole meet, no?
Yeah.
Cogburn, White Barrio, and White Beam. Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah. So
we'll see what we could do this year. And Saratoga Saturday, week 1, episode 1. That's a wrap.
All right. Good luck, and we'll catch everybody next week.
Ciao, ciao, everybody.
Tracking trips from Past the Wire and the Pick Six King, Jon Stettin. As your handicapping partner, Jon is your second set of eyes on the past performances, replays, numbers, trips, and more, helping you find the angles and plays others miss. Each week you get expert analysis, smarter ways to press your opinions, and the keys to cashing bigger tickets. Tracking trips from Past the Wire. Give yourself an edge and partner with a pro. Get a second set of trained, experienced eyes. Join today. Membership has its benefits. Saratoga Saturday on Pass the Wire TV. Presented by Amwager. Nobody does it better. You're watching Saratoga Saturday. Exclusive coverage every Saturday of the meet. Only on Pass the Wire TV.